Hey, hello VC. Well, I sure imagine a lot of you folks were surprised when you got your notification today that Ron Beaudry made a video. What? He's alive? Yeah, let's just sit back here, relax a little bit. This isn't gonna be one of those uh, videos about records and all that stuff because my stereo is packed up. It's in the spare room. We're remodeling this house here. That's what I've been doing for the last 6 months. And here's the deal. All the kids now are grown up. They've graduated to college. My youngest boy, I've talked about him on a lot of videos. He's joined the Navy. He just graduated from his electronics technician course. He did top of his class almost. Really, really proud of him. He's done really good. He's going to be stationed in San Diego because, he wants to go to Japan so he can get Daddy some of those Japanese records. Well, that's probably not the reason, but you know what? Hey, God's looking after me, man. I might be able to got to have an in on those Japanese originals because they are very pricey. So I need a record hound to dig, one of them crate diggers out there in Japan. That's what I need. So I might get one. You never know where he's going to go, but hey, it was kind of a funny story. So I want to retire here maybe a year or so. So my wife and I are deciding where we're going to go. We're going to go down to Florida. We're going to get a condo. We're going to get, But when you're looking for a house that you want to have a dedicated stereo room in, they're not easy to find. Well, we found, and it's only about 5 miles from where I used to live, we found the perfect house. This is a 1950s bungalow now that the original owner, it's a one owner house. They were here their whole lives. Now, the mom and dad had, the parents, they bought the house new. They had one child, a girl. And when what they did was when she was in her 30s, which was in the 80s sometime, I'm thinking, they added an addition to the house. They doubled the size of the house. So now the house is about 2,400 square feet. And they put an addition on it. And the girl never got married, so she stayed on the older side, and they moved into the new side. And then years passed, and things. Mom and Dad passed away, and here we go. We're in the house, and man, this is a fantastic place for us. It is going to be such a great place to put my music room over here on one side, and a bedroom and a new master suite on one, and the other side is going to have she can have her own living room over there, and the kitchen, and the bedrooms over there, and all that. It's going to be fantastic. I can play my stuff over here, and with that double brick wall between the two, hopefully it's going to help with the sound. So we've been working, got the kitchen all done, and we're moving on next week. It's kind of like the flip and flop deal. She wants to take the walls out, open it up, all that. So next week they're probably going to start on that. But in the last couple of weeks we've kind of been in a lull, and I've been watching I started watching some of my old YouTube videos, and of course those are super boring. So I started looking at other stuff. And I started looking at a couple other channels just floating around. And you got to be careful because if you go down some of those rabbit holes, you get into some of these people that are on the VC that, they're kind of spreading stuff around that, I don't like to hear. So what I really need to do, I was thinking about it today, is, the people that are on my channel, the people that respond to me, those are the folks that I really need to concentrate on watching their videos and not start looking at other stuff because I don't want to get into it on my channel. But anyway, so what I was thinking about doing was just kind of going over my journey as an audiophile. And so I wrote down kind of like what I've done in my journey as in stereo equipment, that type of thing. So In 1971, I was about 15 years old, 16 years old, and for the summer vacation, my uncle owned it. He had a large mechanical contracting company, you know, plumbing and steam and that type of stuff. And so I got to have a job at a plumber's helper in construction. And in those years, plumbers made $6 an hour. And they paid me as a helper, they paid me $3 an hour. So, you know, I was making good money for a kid in high school. So after the end of the summer, I went and bought me a Sony TC366 reel-to-reel. Now in 1970, my parents had bought one of those big Magnavox console stereos. I mean, they were state of the art at the time. They had a dual turntable in there, silk dome tweeters. Yeah, they paid $1,000 for it. I mean, this was really, really good for the day, you know, for that type of a thing. So I got some longer wires made up because, you know, we were living in Winnipeg then, and I had my reel-to-reel in the downstairs where my room was, and I had the wires running down so I could record my records on to the tape, and I could listen to the radio. And back then, you know, FM radio was great, good sound, good stereo, but it was a lot different than it is today. It was like underground radio, that's what it was. And they played, you know, top 40 radio on AM, it was great. You had, you know, the Beatles, and they were playing, you know, Rolling Stones, of course, and Led Zeppelin, and all those big groups were all on AM. But you know what? When I listened to FM, I got turned on to groups like Blue Oyster Cult, you know, the early stuff, and Jethro Tull, David Bowie, all that kind of thing. That was on FM. So I was recording that on my reel-to-reel. But anyway, I don't want to take too much time. It's going to be a very long video if I do that with every item I got. So then the next summer, I worked some more, and I got an Akai turntable, an Onkyo receiver, and I got some Electro Voice speakers. Now that Onkyo, that Akai turntable, that came with an Audio-Technica cartridge. So, I mean, it was around, I think I paid almost $300 for it, and I got a really good deal because, you know, Akai was making them huge, big reel-to-reels at the time. They were $1,500 or more dollars, and so that was the only turntable they made. They made one turntable, and that's the one, and it was really good. And so the next upgrade that I made was I took that cartridge out of there and I put in an ADC XLM. It was probably about 1975. And now, there really wasn't any moving coil cartridges yet. They were just, I can't remember the guy who started it, but he made like his first one around those years. And you know, back in the day it was the Shure, the ADC, the Stantons, the Empire. Those were the cartridges of the day. That's what people had. And the ADC XLM was, at that time, was like the top of the line. It was $100. And so you're thinking, wow, I got the best stuff there is. Well, of course you didn't, but you know, you're just a kid. You don't know. Then after that, I got some new speakers. They were called the Avid 103s. And they were like $269.95 each. And they were so much better than those Electro Voice. And they were one of the first companies that was, you know, lower end that they had a big crossover on a board about that big. All kinds of chokes and coils and resistors and stuff all over it. And that's really what made this, because it was just a bunch of Philips drivers in there, but they really made that speaker sound great. So that was the next upgrade that I made. Then I went and they came up with the ADC cartridge, a ZLM, because, you know, the XLM, that was an elliptical cartridge needle, and the ZLM was a Shibata stylus. So it really got a little deeper in the groove and you could hear a little bit more. Then the next upgrade was a system deck turntable with a Hadcock arm on it. And then I got a audio design preamp and a power amp. Those were made in Canada. I had the 20A. It was a Canadian design. and those are a really good pre and power amp for their day. And what I did, they had the Motorola output transistors, and you could hear, I forget how, but I was just listening to it. And so I talked to a guy at work. He was an electrician. He was into electronics, and he said, you know, those Motorola's, they're really leaky. What you need to do is replace those with Toshiba matched pairs. So that's what I did. I replaced it with those, and wow, that thing really sounded. I had good sound on it now, really good sound on it. And then, you know, I went on a trip because I'm from Minneapolis originally, and we went down to Minneapolis and visited some relatives, and my wife and I the day, and some friends. And I went into this, we were in St. Paul. I wanted to go to the old Como Park Zoo where I was a kid. I used to go there. So we went down there, and we're kicking around that part of town, which is the old part of St. Paul. And there was this little kind of a stereo kind of shop in there. And I walked in, it was one room. You walked in the front door, it was one room. They had a display case on the left side of the wall, and at the back wall there was another display case. And there was a fella at the back wall who was there. So I went back and talked to him. And I said, you know what, I want to get a moving coil cartridge. What have you got? And he kind of basically had a whole bunch of used stuff. He didn't really have anything new. He had a few things new, but you know, nothing of any consequence. But he had a used Ortophone MC20. It had a gold body on it. And I was reading stereophile at the time, and I said, well, you know, that sounds good, I'll get that. But I need a step-up transformer because my preamp is for moving magnets, so that's a low output moving coil. Now I'm going to need a step-up transformer. So he sold me a Vandersteen moving coil step-up transformer. And people said, what, a Vandersteen? Yeah, he actually made, probably in '75 or something, he made a moving coil step-up transformer. He never made it anything like that again. He obviously makes a great speakers. He has for years, but that's what he sold me. And so after about a year or so, I called that guy in St. Paul, in Minneapolis. He had given me his card and his phone number and said, if you need anything or whatever, call me back. I'll be glad to help you out. So, you know, I wanted to get rid of that cartridge, so I thought maybe I could trade it into him and move up. So I called him up, and he said, he answered the phone, Jerry Ratskin, the needle doctor, and I'm like, hey, is this Jerry? Yeah. It was the guy that I had talked to, that little shop. He's Jerry Raskin. And if you know anything about that, now he's got a huge place. Sells about everything there is with audio, with stereo stuff. But I met that guy when he was, you know, just a kid selling used stuff out of a nothing store. So it's kind of a cool story. So I said, I need a new cartridge. What do you think I should get? He says, what? But hands down, if you don't want to spend a lot of money, it's around $250. It's called a Signet OC9, and it's an Audio-Technica, but it's their upper end. They call it Signet. I said, okay, cool. So what am I going to do with this Ortophone? Yeah, send it back to me. I'll give you X amount of money, and you send me this, and we'll. So I did that, and yeah, wow, I really love that OC9. I had it for many years in the system, and I actually had. I think I bought 2 or 3 of them. Okay, so. Then we get to I go to another cartridge. The next upgrade I make is another cartridge. I get that's right, I forgot about that. This is what happened. When I moved from Canada, I was living in Winnipeg, and I moved to Florida. First thing I did I went down to Fort Lauderdale, and I bought a pair of Martin Logan sequels. And I bought a new cartridge at that time too. It was a German cartridge. I don't remember I wish I could remember the name of it right now. I'll think of it. So I bought that cartridge, and then I had the Martin Logans, and that was the next step up. Well, then I decided I needed a new preamp and a power amp. So I bought the super fun Revelation Basic preamp and I bought the Musical Fidelity AC3R power amp, and wow, what a difference that power amp made. I couldn't believe how much difference it made. Just so much more inner detail in the music. I mean, it's coming from the amplifier. You're hearing all this detail coming out. That didn't hardly make sense, because you're thinking more arm and cartridges and preamps. You don't think power amp would make that much difference in the detail the music makes. But I mean, as far as all of the harmonic structure and all that of the music, that power amp made so much difference. And so after that, I decided I needed a new phono section. So I bought Michael Fremer was raving about that Lehman Black Cube at the time. And it was only, I forget, it wasn't real expensive. So I bought the Black Cube and stuck that in behind the Superphon. And wow, yeah, huge difference. That they all raved about that Superphon, how great that phono section was. It couldn't hold a candle to that Lehman Black Cube. And then I decided I needed a new turntable, because I had a system deck with the Hadcock arm on it, and so I did a lot of reading on Audiogun in those days, and they were raving about that silver tone arm, how great it was. It was actually a Rega RB300, but it was a total rebuild of the whole thing. They changed the arm tube and the bearings. They did a lot of different stuff to it, and they were raving about how great it was. Of course, you couldn't read about stuff like that on Stereophile. I mean, because they don't cover stuff like that. The company's not big enough. So I bought that silver tone arm, and so I thought, well, you know what? They're coming out with a new turntable. It was called the Aurora. So I said, why not buy the turntable too? And I was one of the first people in the world to ever buy one of those turntables. Well, North America, I should say. And the guy that owns Origin Live actually called me at the house and wanted to know about how the turntable was sounding. And I said I was having trouble because the suspension didn't seem right. And I think they had trouble. They were just starting out, and so they sent me different springs, because it was a sprung. It was like a Linn turntable that was sprung, same as the system deck was a sprung turntable. So I got different springs for it, and made all the difference in the world. Then it was easy to set up. I got it done right. So then when I got the Aurora and the silver, in the meantime I had gone on eBay and I was looking for a new cartridge, because my needle was getting bad on that other one anyway, so I had to get a retip or something. So I thought maybe I'll just get an upgrade. So the guy had a Vandenhall Frog on there, and those cartridges in those days were like $1,500. And the guy was selling it used for $600. So I said, wow, I can afford $600. I can't afford $1,500. So I bought it. And you know what? There was something wrong with that cartridge. I didn't know it at the time, but it just didn't sound right. It played fine. It just somehow wasn't musical. And those things are obviously supposed to be a great cartridge. I mean, today they got a Vandenhall Frog Gold, they call it, and they're like $3,600. Of course, it's not the same as this thing, but the basic one still goes for like two grand. So I had done Audiogun they were raving about this Shelter 501, which was called the Crown Jewel before, and it was a Japanese cartridge. The guy that made the Crown Jewel with another fellow, they split up. Then he rebanded it, changed the body on it, and it was basically the same as the Crown Jewel. The Crown Jewel was going for $2,000. He started selling the Shelters for $995 or something. And everybody on Audiogun was goo gaga about it, so I bought the Shelter. And the guy gave me $600 for the Frog, so I never lost any money on that. And then, of course, I could upgrade for like another $400 or so. because when you're working, man, I can't spend $1,500 on a cartridge, but I can kind of go 300 and then upgrade to another, and then keep kind of spending that money 300, 400 at a time, and I can get to that kind of a cartridge. So anyway, I had the black cube, had the Aurora, had the silver tone arm. Then I had got that Shelter 501. Now that thing was really good. It made so much difference. Turned out there was something wrong with that Frog cartridge. When the guy sent it off back to Vandenhall to get rebuilt, they found out that there was a problem with the cartridge. So I could hear something was up with that. I knew something wasn't right. So then I traded in the Aurora for the upgrade. The next upgrade in the Origin line, they came up with a new one. It was called the Calypso. And so that was used again. I bought that used. I traded in for the guy that I bought that. I traded my Aurora in for the Calypso, made another upgrade. And wow, really changed my whole thinking about turntables, because I didn't change my arm or my cartridge. I just changed the turntable. And the background noise went way down. I said, what? I thought it was more important, the tracking and the cartridge and all those things made a big more difference. But no, the turntable itself, the plinth and all that stuff, that made it sound quieter. So then I got the Dodd preamp, which is a battery-powered tube amplifier, and I started reading on AudioGone again about that. And I had read a lot about it before, and there's a guy I like to read his articles. It's called 10 Audio, and he's on the internet, and he does a lot of reviews, and he reviewed that Dodd preamp. He reviews a lot of stuff. I've been reading his stuff for 10 years or more, and he reviewed the Dodd, and he raved about it. And I know that Dodd preamp was, when it was new, it was like $1,600 or $1,700. And he said it was the best preamp he had heard under $7,000. So of course, you know what I do? I went on AudioGone and I bought it used. I think I paid $1,000 or $900 for it or something. I can't remember the exact how it all worked out. But anyway, I bought that. And wow, what a great preamp. So the guys on AudioGone are talking about you need to put the Mullard tubes in there because it really makes the voice holographic. So I said, yeah, that's what I want to do. So I did that, and that was the tube to go with. And then, I wanted to talk a little about that Superfund Revelation basic preamp that I had. Just after I had bought that Frog and I got my black cube, and I hadn't done any kind of upgrades or anything for quite a while. And I was doing a lot of reading about capacitors and upgrade paths and different things. So I decided, you know what? That's an older preamp now. It probably needs to have the electrolytic capacitors replaced. So I did a lot of reading on the internet about capacitors and how they sound, because they all sound different, And so I decided that Elna would be the one, because that was one of the ones for the money, was a great capacitor, great sounding. So I bought all the Elnas and we put them in, and then I also changed the Zener diode in there so I could upgrade the transformer. I put a toroidal transformer in there. Had to buy a whole separate case because what it was in there it wouldn't even fit. I got a whole new case, and I put it in there, and wow, you can imagine, increased power supply and all those electrolytic caps in the signal path. It would completely change the sound of that, much for the better, of course. And so I realized how much difference, just a preamp sound could make. And that's why I bought that when I could afford it. I started selling off a lot of records out of my collection, and I got a lot of money going into PayPal. So that's where that money came from, to buy that Calypso and buy that Dodd preamp. And then the next thing I got was I bought the Jasmine phono preamp to replace the Black Cube. Now I did a lot of reading on Audiogon too about, because when I want to think about what I'm thinking, what am I going to buy next? I go on there and I start reading, and they were raving about the Jasmine, and what they said to do is replace those output capacitors with the Jasden Superior Z. So, I had done a lot of reading about these capacitors, and I went back and I reread and I did some more research on it, and I decided that I was going to go with the Clarity Cap, the film capacitor, output capacitors. I could get the same 100 UF, and I put those in there, and I'm telling you what, the name is true, Clarity. It brought so much clarity to the sound. It made it so much clearer. It was a big improvement. So right now, I'm at a point, like I said, my stereo's all packed up, but I've had that shelter now for quite a while. And when I was in Jacksonville a few years back, I ran into Peter Lederman, and he is the owner of Soundsmith Cartridges, and they have a retipping service. And I had talked to him about doing a retip to one of my other cartridges, and so I did a lot of other reading, and actually put some posts out there about, I've got this, what do you think I should do? What's the improvement? And they said, get your cartridge retipped by Peter Lederman. Get the ruby cantilever and that put on there. So that's what I want to do. I want to get that. That's going to be my next upgrade. And then, I don't remember the fella's name, but he's he's an Asian guy, and he reviews a lot of stereo equipment. Paul, you know who he is. I can't remember his name. But he's got that Avid Pulsus, and I really like the JC3, the Avid Pulsus. And there's a few stereo preamps out there. Phono preamps out there that I want to get. I want to get into that type of range of preamp. I think that's going to be like that's the next two things I want to go for. And the last thing I want to talk about before I go is speaker wires. Now, when I had bought that Audio Design pre and power amp, because that interconnect between the pre and power, that seems to be where the most sonic improvement is where you get the most sonic improvement. So I went down to my hi-fi store. It was in Winnipeg then. I went to the hi-fi store where I went all the time, and the guy's going, Ron, what kind of interconnects are you using between your amp? I said, whatever comes in the box, it's wire. And he goes, these here? I go, yeah, that's what I'm using. So he plugs it in. How's it sound? I'm like, wow. He's got like Martin Logan's, and he's got that Superfon power amplifier, and I some in a Revelation, the bigger one, preamplifier. I said, wow, this is glorious compared to what I got. Man, this is wonderful. He said, well, hang on a second. We got these now. This is some new wire that just come out. It's from Europe. It's called Vandenhull, and we're selling these. Have a listen about this. Sure, go ahead, put it in there. Turns it on. I'm like, and I did just listen to it. I had that same song, and I'm listening to it again. I'm like, wow, I can hear a difference, and it sounds a lot better. What's going on? It's just a piece of wire. I'm like, how much does that cost? And he give me the price, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to spend that much for wire. Come on now, I gotta figure this out. So my brother had a CD player, and I talked him into buying them Vandenhull wires. And he bought them. So of course I got a CD player and them wires. I took them home and I listened to it, and I changed them out, and I listened, and I got to understand what they were how they sounded. And so there was another guy at work. He was an electrician, and he was listening. He was buying those stereo books for a long time, and there was an article in absolute sound about, it's called the Pooge 2. It was a super mod of the Hafler power amp. And what they had done, they had changed all the caps and the power supplies. You know that same when you mod an amplifier, and they had changed all the wiring inside as well. They had done a Litz type wire inside of the amplifier. So the guy said, listen, I'm not going to go through all that trouble and change all those stuff in my power amp if I don't continue the signal path up with that same wire. So they took the wire and he made interconnects out of it, and he made speaker wire out of it. And they talked about the electrical theory about wires. They talked about intrastrand rectification. They talked about skin effect. They talked about all that stuff in the literature, and they designed a wire that got around all those problems with wires in hi-fi. And so a guy from work, Gordy, and I bought all the stuff off the internet, and we made the wires over at his place. And when we got done, I listened to them. I compared them to those Vandenhals, and ours were better than the Vandenhal. Not a whole bunch, but they were better. You could hear they were better. And so I'm like, wow. So that's the same ones I still have today. So all these folks that want to talk about this doesn't sound good and that doesn't matter and this doesn't matter. All this stuff matters. But does it matter to you? That's what matters. To some folks, it matters. Like a person like me, it matters to me. To a lot of people, it doesn't matter. They're not audiophiles. I was watching a video about a guy who was an audiophile, and he says when he listens to the music, it affects him emotionally. And that's why he's an audiophile, because of the way that the music, the sound of it affects him emotionally. It moves him. And maybe it doesn't happen to all people, but it does the same thing to me. And okay, thanks for watching. Everything's cool. I'll try to make a couple more of these goofy videos in the future just to kind of keep up with y'all. And thanks for watching.